Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. All right, welcome everybody. Today my guest is Bob Potts, and we are talking about water in your home, water filters. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming, man. I'm doing really well. I know I kind of spoke over you there.
Right.
I know this was a little bit of a scheduling hurdle to get you here. I'm really glad that we could make it work. I know that water is initially, at least in my mind, jumping right in, it's the enemy, because I build homes, right? And no matter what you're doing when you go into a home after you've built it and there's a problem, 99.9% of the time, it's because of water. And you're like, wait a minute, no, the foundation's like, well, why did the foundation move? Because some water got in somehow. It's always related to water. Why did the window leak? Why did the wood rot? Like it's always water. Movement somehow goes down to footers. Footers move because of water. But in your case, you know, you're on the water is life side, which is also accurate, but we're just on different sides of the water aisle, so to speak. So first off, what's the name of your company?
AguaCity Incorporated.
AguaCity. Okay.
We're based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Okay. And so do you have like an online presence if people want to like give you a Google or find you on Instagram?
Yeah, we're at
www.aquacity.com.
That's AQUACITY.com. Or you could call us with any questions, toll free, 800-962-5516. And to getting back to your water problems with foundations and things like that, water is a universal solvent. So it's always going to find its quickest way through anything. And that's why people usually have problems with that.
Yeah, exactly. And so from a building perspective, I'm all about how many redundant layers of protection can we put, even all the way down to what paint we choose. Right. You, on the other hand, we're humans. We're mammals. Water's required, like air. And if you live in the modern world, like people who have the ability to listen to a podcast, you wash your clothes in water, you wash your dishes in water, you wash yourself in water, you drink water, right. You feed your pet water. And a lot of times, except for, drinking it, most people don't really think about how the water can affect them in all those other areas, like, clothes and dishes and stuff like that.
Well, most people in my opinion, most people know they probably need some sort of water filtration for their home, but it's the type of thing they always put off.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another.
Right. And I guess we should say you sell water filters. Like it's not a spa company.
Right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got your plug out of the way. We're only doing positive plugs on this podcast. I made that random rule myself. Okay. So we're plugging you and we're having you because you've done great work and a great job. I mean, I literally have your equipment in my house.
Right.
So to talk about our personal link up, like it's obviously different than a random customer who calls. I had our mutual friend Tommy Adams, who is a plumber. I asked him about water filters randomly, and he literally was like, "They're great. I know nothing. Call my friend Bob." And I was like, okay. And I call you and I'm like, Tommy says you know water filters? And you're like, yeah, bro, I sell them for a living. I'm like, okay, this is the guy I need. And I obviously got a very different level of service because I was a friend of a friend and a general contractor. And I had already had several water tests by the city. So you were able in 1 second to be like, oh, well, you don't need 6 different things. You need just this one thing. You've got the red rings that a lot of people have, in the toilet and around like the shower ring. And you can probably later on talk about the more direct scientific thing of that. Mm-hmm. And then, next thing I knew, it was arriving in a week. And, now my whole house is filtered and I don't even think, I felt the difference day one in the shower and like washing my clothes. Like it was a legitimate noticeable differences.
It does. It makes a big difference. And in your case, you did a whole house system. Yeah. Other people could put a filter just under their sink or a shower filter or countertop or whatever their needs are or budget is. Yeah. Okay. AguaCity's been in business for over 30 years. And we also sell direct to manufacturers in the RV and yachting industry.
Okay, so you're full everywhere water's being used.
Right, and we deal with a lot of people who are more rural on wells, and they have issues with iron, manganese, pH, things of that nature, pesticides, herbicides, carcinogens that might be in the water.
I believe you did Jeremy Stallings' water system, because I think actually that may have been how you and Tom linked up, or I can't actually remember. How did you meet Tom?
Oh, well, Tom and I play darts in a league.
Oh, okay. Right.
For several years. That's how I ended up meeting Tom.
It's funny. I don't play darts at all just because I'm not good at it, but I play softball or baseball, now softball, and my brother and I got thrown out of the park because they wanted to close the park and our team wanted to have beers in the parking lot. And they were like, no, leave, get out. Like, the lady was like, I'm the one who locks the gate at the front and I'm leaving. And we were like, wow, you're very mean. And we drove to wherever he was playing darts, which I think at the time now is Picnic Barbecue, but was a different bar not long ago. And Tommy heard my brother and I's New York accent from across the parking lot and stumbled his drunk self over and was like, I'm a plumber. Here you go. And he has been my plumber since. This is like 8 years ago.
Yeah. He said, hey, just forget about it.
Yeah, that is Tommy spot on. The only problem with your impression is you didn't keep talking.
Add about a bing, add about a bang. Furthermore, let me say this about that.
Yeah. But, and how the Yankees, every time.
Well, I also found, when I met Tommy, I found out that his brother lives like 3 blocks away from my sister on Staten Island in New York, which is amazing.
The connections, right? Yeah, the world is much smaller than we care to admit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And it just gets smaller and smaller the more people you have. And I feel like at a faster rate in our industry, because our industry is half network, which the quicker and better you can grow it.
Right.
Yeah. So
let me just say something else about, consumers who are looking for water filters and purifiers, because I get these kind of questions all the time or calls where people say, I need a water softener. So I usually say, well, what makes you think you need a water softener?
Yeah. What got you to that conclusion?
Yeah. And they say, well, my water's hard. And I said, well, how do you know your water's hard? A lot of people don't understand what hard water is, soft water is, and what water softeners do.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people, so I legitimately, you've already sold me a system, and I still want you to educate me. So let's just start with one right off the bat. What's hard water?
Well, hard water relates to undissolved dissolved calcium rather in the water, but it's unstable. So I don't know what you remember from your chemistry back in high school. Whatever.
Let's assume none and speak very dumb because okay. I swing a hammer and I got a college degree, but it did not. I'm not as smart as the degree says. So like, let's dumb it down real stupid for me. So not as much calcium should be there, or not as much calcium.
Well, the calcium, there's high amounts of calcium, but it's unbalanced because it's missing electrons on the outer covalence bonds. So the calcium wants to balance itself. That's why a lot of times you see that white buildup on the faucets. If there's hard water, you'll see like in glass showers, it'll build up on the glass.
Right.
It'll get white and cloudy, or on tiles, or even if you were to boil a pot of water and all the water was gone, you'd have this hard calcium stain in the pan.
So that's hard water.
That's hard water. Okay. And when those things adhere to the glass, the frying pan or whatever.
Right.
Also in a hot water heater, an electric hot water heater, it'll bond to the heating element and burn those out real quick. So you have that expense. But once it's attached, it's almost like concrete. You know, you got to almost chip it off to get it off there. CLR works pretty good in dissolving that.
Oh, the product.
That like product, CLR,
gotcha.
right.
Okay, so on the reverse, do you want your water to be soft, or is soft on the other side of the spectrum and just as bad?
Well, if you use a water softener, it could be just as bad because water softeners came about right after World War II. Actually, that's what helped Culligan get their start.
Okay.
Because after World War II, a lot of people got married. They moved into more rural areas. They were more on well water, and the wives that stayed at home taking care of the family complained that the soap wouldn't lather in the wash and the clothes weren't getting clean.
Ah,
that's
and
because that's from the hard water. The calcium was trying to attach to the soap or whatever, and preventing it from lathering.
Right. But at the same time, you said like you can still go, I guess, like just as you can as you know, from the middle needle of perfect water, go too far to the right of too hard.
Right.
Go too far to the left of too soft is also bad.
Yeah, well, what old-fashioned type water softeners, which people are still selling today, and we sell as well, but we have other alternative solutions. What it does, it physically removes the calcium ions from the water, and anytime you do something like that physically, you got to replace it with something, so it replaces it with sodium ions. So
like salt?
Salt.
Okay.
There's a container that you dump salt in, 50-pound bag every couple of months, and that's a cost. And the problem with creating salt water, it's unhealthy to consume. It's a corrosive.
That's horrible on your appliances.
Terrible on the appliance, hot water heater. Your faucets are going to leak because it's going to eat away at the rubber washers and gaskets in there. So it creates a whole new problem. And then if you have a water softener, an old-fashioned water softener that puts salt in the water to consume the water, now you got to spend a lot of money to put a reverse osmosis system under the sink,
salt back out,
and to physically remove the sodium and reject it.
So you've got to basically soften the water to make it okay for your whole home, but then at the drinking spout, make sure you're not drinking the ocean, basically, because salt water obviously not good. But
the whole house also, even if you have the RO system, that's good for consuming the water, but in a shower, you feel like you never get the soap off.
Right.
All right. A lot of people have experienced that. And the other thing is you got salt water in your plumbing. So, like I said, it's a corrosive. If you have a electric hot water heater, it's gonna eat up that heating element, It's gonna you're gonna be replacing faucets throughout the house, and you could have plumbing leaks and things like that.
This is like it's fascinating what's like happening in my brain right now, because now I'm thinking, because I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot, and now I'm thinking back to like hotel rooms where I took a shower, and I'm like, man, this just feels like it feels different, and it's like either the soap is like comes off easy or doesn't come, and I'm like, wow, I can actually like think back to not the specific city or whatever, but I can think back to just a time where I'm like, well, I travel with the same damn soap, so it had to be the water, and it was clearly like too hard or too soft or whatever. So I like your explanations are very good, because it's like real life situations. What's causing the red discoloration that you see if like maybe you don't clean your toilet enough and you see like that red ring, or you do clean your toilet enough and it shows up in like 11 hours or whatever? What is that red stuff?
Usually it's more of a reddish brown type of a stain, which is typically caused by iron.
Okay, it's iron.
All right, so if you're on a well, especially here in North Carolina where we're at, a lot of wells have iron and manganese in it, and the pH is more acidic, so you have to deal with those kind of issues.
Okay.
If you're on a municipality, like city water or something like that, where you're paying a lot of money for.
Well, that's me at the moment.
But
I'm very sorry. My phone is not on silent.
The quality of municipalities have really gone down over the last few decades, and that's because back in, I think it was 1985, federal government passed the Clear Drinking Water Act of 1985. All right, which sounds great and everything, but basically, the federal government put it on the state government, who put it on the local government, who put it on the municipality to check themselves, and they've got certain standards. They got to make sure they remove like 95% of this and 96% of that has to be out of the water. pH has to be okay, but there's still issues, and there's still those percentages that are not being taken out of the water. And nowadays we're having problems with a lot of pharmaceuticals getting in our drinking water, as well as problems from like a cold ash spill that recently happened up on the Virginia border, things like that. So a lot of people don't know about all the issues, and I always say, just because you don't see, smell, or taste it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah. I had a guest a couple of weeks ago. Her episode hasn't aired, or by the time this one will air, it will have aired, now that I think about it. But she was talking about radon. Right. And she was like, well, you can't see it, taste it, or smell it, but we can test for it. And if you've got a loved one who's just like coughing and they don't smoke, like, we should check their home. I was like, well, I don't have that loved one, but damn, that's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something to be concerned about as well. When you buy a house, or you should check for things like that. Yeah.
I mean, when you buy a house, it should be one of the, 11 inspections or whatever tests that you're getting done. Did that happen when you were talking about, was it your daughter just bought like a amazing spot in Virginia that you were telling me about? There's like 11 acres with this like cab. Did they get a radon test?
Actually they did.
Yeah,
they did. And, the guy who owned that property that sold it to him actually built that cabin. He was a builder himself.
Oh, awesome.
And, it's pretty solid, for what it is, and where it is. It's really off the grid, but they're loving it. So,
well, yeah, no, it was just, I when you were describing everything about it, and I won't go into detail again, but I was like, man, you're describing heaven right now, like solar and in the woods and it's just like, okay, amazing. But yeah, the radon thing, like,
well, I was up there in August, and when they were having an inspector come in, and I tested their water. They actually got 3 springs on their property.
Oh, wow.
And the water quality is like beautiful.
Nice.
It's really nice.
How do you get into water?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked that. It's back. I'm trying to think of the actual year, but it was like the
7 stone ago.
Long time ago, in a faraway, far out place. I think it was like in the early 1980s. I used to be a computer engineer out in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And a friend of mine moved to South San Jose in a new housing development down there. Fairchild and IBM had a plant down there, near there. And all of a sudden, there was high levels of birth defects, leukemias, cancers in these neighborhoods down there. And they had a neighborhood meeting, and my friend invited me down because I was an engineer. He thought maybe I had something logical to say. And everybody was talking about, it must be the building products, it must be this, it must be that, what's going on. And I suggested that the only thing I see you all have in common is the water you're drinking and the air you're breathing. So I suggested, why don't you call the EPA in and have them test the water and the air?
I know maybe you're glossing over, but are you really trying to tell me that an entire town meeting of people who actually lived there, nobody could think of that, and you, who didn't live there, who was a guest of your friend, was the only one who could think?
Well, I guess I don't know if anyone else thought of it, but I came up with it first.
Was this like a city council meeting, or what kind of meeting is this?
Oh, it was just
it's like a block party,
like a homeowners association meeting type of thing.
Oh,
but there was different neighborhoods, but they were all closely grouped. Okay, so I don't know. A couple of weeks went by. They had another meeting, and I went back down, and someone said, "Well, the EPA came in and said the air's fine, nothing wrong with your water." So I said,
just like that.
Yeah, and I said, "Look, I work for the government. I'm here to help you. The check's in the mail. How many lies you want to hear?" And then I also suggested, why don't everybody kick in whatever it was, $20 a piece or something. And I said, if it was the air, I think it would affect a much larger area than here. But you're all getting water from the same water source in the ground. So I suggested they kick in money and from the different neighborhoods, take some water samples to an independent lab and get an unbiased report. Because a lot of companies like mine will say, well, we'll come out and test the water for free and we'll do this and that. And we do that as well. But I suggest they get an independent report because then it's unbiased. You have a company like mine come in and they'll slant it towards whatever it is that you're trying to sell you, basically. So if you really want to be knowledgeable, get an independent report. And that's what they did. And then all of a sudden it came back that there was high levels of tetrachloroethylene, or TCE, in the water.
Which is what?
Well, at first I wasn't sure either because it was the early 80s before the internet, so I had to go to the library.
What's that?
Really? And I had to investigate all this, And tetrachloroethylene, like I said, Fairchild had a plant there, and they were making computer boards. And they go through a wave solder machine, and to clean the flux off of the solder.
Right.
They use tetrachloroethylene as a solvent to clean that all off. All right. So they had an underground storage tank, and they're supposed to take dipstick readings. And it turned out that tank was leaking. All that tetrachloroethylene's going down into the water table in the ground, which these villages were pumping up. And you can't smell it. You can't see it. You can't taste it. All right. And it's a known carcinogen. So I started investigating, and I found out a tablespoon of tetrachloroethylene will make drinking water undrinkable for a family of 4 for 1 year.
Whoa.
Fairchild lost over 10,000 gallons of tetrachloroethylene down into the drinking water. And it's still a problem today in San Jose. So, again, I went back to the library. It's like, well, why isn't there something on the market to take this off? And I found out there are products, but the more I investigated water filters and that type of business, the more I discovered you could never compare an apple to an apple. All right.
What compels you as somebody who doesn't live there and isn't getting any sort of like payment? You're a software engineer, like you said. This isn't your zone. What compels you to it's time out of your day to go to the library? What compels you to do this?
Education.
Okay. Yeah.
And curiosity as well. I always have a need to know type of thing. I've always been like that. But, so after I found out about a lot of that, and a filter might look the same, but you might be looking at a Macintosh versus a Golden Delicious if you're comparing apples to apples. And they may look the same on the inside, but what's on the outside, but on the inside, depending on how it's built or what's in there, they'll handle different things. So right around that time, a friend of mine that lived up near the San Francisco airport introduced me to a family, the Bernsteins from South Africa. And for years, they were trying to come to the United States and get a green card and, and all that. And they had money. And I found this water filter company in Tempe, Arizona. It was a mom and pop shop. They made inline water filters for commercial ice makers.
Okay.
And Pop died. Mom was running the business into the ground. So they offered to buy the business. And they told the federal government, yeah, we're going to employ people, pay SUTA and FICA, all the things they want to hear. And they got their green card, and they came and bought the business and took it over. So, excuse me. So initially I saw a market for the RV and yachting industry, because a lot of RVs are manufactured without water filters. They got water storage tanks, and yachts as well. And they travel around. They pick up different water sources from different places. They go to Mexico and get Montezuma's Revenge from the water and things like that. So I approached the RV market initially, and I asked the Bernsteins if they could build this product to my specs, which they did for pennies more than it cost me to try to manufacture that myself. And it was kind of uphill battle getting in the RV industry, because the excuse I kept hearing from the purchasing heads and that's an aftermarket thing. Let people put that on after they buy their RV.
Oh, okay. Instead of like, Winnebago or Airstream buying them from you, they were just telling you, let the customer do it after they buy our product.
Right. So at the time, I finally got in front of the head of purchasing for Fleetwood Motorhomes down in Riverside, California. And I'm hearing the same excuses with him. So I said to him, John, I'm a consumer just like everybody else. And if I'm in the market for an RV and I've got your product pitted against your competitors, price points are about the same, luxuries are about the same, but yours has a water filter on it that I can go to Mexico and safely drink the water, I'd buy yours.
I mean, that is a sound argument. I know you're trying to sell him, but I'm sitting here going, well, that if they really are all basically the same, if you're doing the apples to apples comparison, and you're talking about a $15,000 RV and one, I'm with you.
Yeah. So he thought about it and he goes, Bob, you got a good point. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll put you on our high end models, $500,000 and up. All right. And we'll see how you do. Well, that following year after they put them on, their sales on the high-end models went up almost 30%. 30%.
And nothing else changed but the filter edition?
That's right.
Wow. Okay.
And they were like, wow, we're putting you on everything we make. And at that time, Fleetwood was their Mercedes-Benz of RVs. And then everybody else followed suit with that. And that's how I started my business and built it. But I've always been straight up and honest with people. We have 100% customer satisfaction, and nobody beats us in price as well. So, I think if for your listeners that are interested in doing something for good, clean, pure water instead of spending a lot of money buying bottled water or having it delivered, they should look into doing something for the home.
Yeah.
Anything's better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely something that is like, I feel like if you took a poll outside of a grocery store, almost 99 or even 100 out of 100 people would agree that like they think that there's something bad in the water, or not something like bad, but they know there's like stuff in the water they shouldn't be drinking. But that's almost 90% of those people would be like, yeah, it's just like on the back burner. My priority is getting these groceries and like feeding my family, as it should be. Like, I'm not trying to discourage or insult anybody's priority, stack. Mm-hmm. But like, we drink a lot of water, we wash a lot of clothes, we wash a lot of dishes. And I mean, as a homeowner, it really came down to, well, okay, so I should back up. First, I was thinking about my health, right? That was priority number one, I'll admit. But very close, right behind it at number two, was me thinking about how much money I've spent on my freaking house. And like, I redid these bathrooms and, new appliances, and the wear and tear that the things that are in the water that you're talking about, how badly and quickly they will, deteriorate the new dishwasher's internal components and deteriorate the new tankless hot water's interior components and your
the
faucets.
Expense of replacing all of that.
Right, exactly. So it's like, all of a sudden, the cost on a water filter, yes, you have to come up with that money. It doesn't come from nowhere, but it becomes very quickly a savings when your $500 dishwasher lasted 3 extra years, or your $800 or $1,500 water heater lasted an extra 6 years. Not to mention those you got to pay a plumber to swap out.
Well, if I could share a story with you,
Please.
When I first moved here from California back in 2000, one of my first clients was up just north of Durham, and found him through Tommy. And Tommy was replacing his hot water heater, all right? And I went up to test his water, and he was on a well, had pH problems. It was very acidic, iron, manganese, and other issues as well. So we put a system in there, and he was complaining to me that, every 4 years he has to replace a hot water heater. So
that's
I
too
said,
quick.
look, if the water is good and clean and pure, your hot water heater should last you a long, long time. So last summer I went to service it, and I asked him, how's the hot water heater doing? He goes, I still have the same one in there.
There you go.
And I said, well, the money you saved on not replacing that, because it's not cheap to replace a hot water heater. I said, more than paid for your system.
Oh, yeah.
So you got a great return on investment.
Oh, yeah. To give people a perspective, because I know some of these numbers, and they've actually probably gone up at post-COVID, but your cheap, crappy, big electric tank hot water heater, just the tube, you're looking $800 to $1,000, and probably the same amount for a plumber to swap it. Right. The really nice Rinnai tankless gas-powered hot water heaters, first of all, you need a gas line, so that's a whole added expense if you don't have it. And even if you have gas in your house, you have to put in a T and pipe to it. But the Rinnai itself, just from the plumbing supply house, is about $1,800. Mm-hmm. So if you saved an $1,800 appliance plus another $500 to $1,000 for a plumber to come swap it by buying a $1,200 water filtration system for your house, you don't have to be that smart to do that math.
Yeah.
Especially, would you say every 4 years?
He was replacing about every 4 years.
That's insane.
That is insane.
Your water heater should last a minimum of 10 years.
10 years at least.
Yeah.
Well, he's got the same one in there for over 20 now.
There you go. And the only thing that's going to, for a hot water heater, the maintenance is very low. Basically, if you have one of those gas ones, you do a plug-in, plug-out water kind of circulation filter cleaner thing once a year. And if you've got the tank electric one, you hook up a hose to the bottom and you drain it once a year so that the sediment, aka rocks and minerals that sit in the bottom, go out. Right. That's it. That's really all the maintenance.
I've gotten a lot of compliments from women who have systems in their house, whether it's just a shower filter or a whole house system, because a lot of women color their hair, right?
Yeah.
And that's expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, when I go out to service or whatever, they tell me, oh, I'm going 2 months longer before I have to color my hair. And I'm like, that's saving you a lot of money right there, because the chemicals that are in the water, especially if it's like a municipality where they heavily chlorinate it, will just strip that color out of the hair.
So it's literally lasting longer.
Yeah, a lot of them said, oh, I have to go like every 6 weeks. Now I'm going like every 3 months or longer.
That's money.
And that alone is saving them a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cost savings. Yeah, it might feel like a lot of expense up front to put in a whole house system, but the benefits over the long haul are amazing because your plumbing's going to last longer, your faucets are going to last longer, your hot water heater, your dishwasher, your ice maker, and the refrigerator. You know, a lot of those are made of plastic, and the chemicals that are in the water just eat through that plastic to where it just sticks and breaks.
And the water line in the fridge too. You got the ice and the water. Like through the most modern fridges have like that door water, you know. And I noticed immediately. I think I may have already said this, but I noticed immediately, like my clothes felt different after I washed them.
Right,
and
they get cleaner.
Yeah, and like in the shower, it just felt different. I was like, this water just feels better. Yeah, like I didn't have like a different word. I was just like, this just feels better. It feels different and better. I was just like, I don't know what's up. It may have been like a little placebo, but it's like years later, and I still am like, my water feels good. Like I go to my girlfriend's apartment, and I'm like, not that I feel like terrible, but I'm like, this is not my filtered water. You can tell a difference.
Yeah, I usually tell people you have the best shower you ever had in your life.
Yeah,
because it's true.
Yeah,
you know. At my house, I have a well.
Yeah.
Even though I'm in the city of Chapel Hill, there was already a well on the property, which I connected when I bought the house. And I have issues like acidic water. It's perfect pH is like 7.2.
Okay, so I got to back you up real quick. You just said something that either you misspoke or you didn't, and I have so many questions.
Oh, okay.
Because you just said, I bought a house, and it's in Chapel Hill, and there was a well, and when I bought the house, I connected to the well. Did you buy a pre-existing built house?
Yeah.
And it didn't have water, but there was a well?
No, it was on city water and sewer. But
so
somebody had put the well
disconnected from the city by choice and was like, I'm piping to that well.
Yeah, why do I want to pay them money for chemical water?
I don't have any issue with your reason. I just really needed to clarify what I just heard. Because as a builder, I was like, no, you didn't misspeak at all. You spoke perfectly accurate. I just need to clarify because I was like, wait a minute. Did you buy a house with no freaking water, but there was a well? Like, wait a minute. It just didn't make any sense. I had to know what was going on. So there was both.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were like, screw the city. Did you keep the sewer connection, or did you put in septic?
Yeah, I did, and it was funny because...
do you have to pay for the sewer connection?
The water company... Well, the sewer was already connected, and so was the water when I bought the house.
No, I mean now that it's done and you get well water for free, obviously you have electricity for a well pump that you're paying.
Right.
But your sewage leaves through the municipality. Do you get a sewage fee?
Well, what
because they must
what
be
happened
mad
when
you don't
I
have
did
a water
that
bill.
and I disconnected the water, they started billing me for the sewer based on over 10,000 gallon usage in a month, and I'm like, there's no way I'm using 10,000 gallons that I'm putting down your sewer line.
Where do they get that number? From previous usage of the house?
I don't know. They pulled it out of their hat or
just
something.
Curious. Okay.
But so I said, look, I'm not using more than 1,500 gallons a month.
Right. You're one guy. Your kids are grown.
Yeah. Right. So I made him put a meter in, and right now they exchanged it for a electronic one that's sends a radio signal to them, and they monitor it. But and that now I'm using 1,500 gallons, and they're billing me on that for the sewer. So my sewer bill is like $18 a month.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So for those who have that option, that is a viable thing. Right. You can get your own water, which your water bill vanishes, but your electric bill gets higher by the added of the electric pump to fill it.
It's not that much either.
No, it's like 2 lights. No, I'm just saying for people who don't know, because the water has to get out of the ground via a pump, which costs electricity and that costs money, but you can still keep your municipality connection if you have that option, which most of the time, not all, but most of the time, if we're talking about a well, we're usually talking enough away from municipality that you need a sewage system, like a tank
or a septic system.
That's what I meant, a septic system. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
But you're in a unique situation where you can do both.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about a septic tank being drained or breaking or driving over this leach field where, you know, a lot of people are like, don't park on that field. Like your truck will get covered in poop and you have to tow it out with a tractor. That's happened. It's happened. Okay. So is this a recent house that you just bought?
No, I've been in there 20 years, but
Okay,
it's, you know, I had to go through all that with the municipality. I remember the neighbors telling me, you know, oh, they're not going to let you, you know, connect to your well. I'm like, who are they to tell me what I can and can't do on my property, you know? So I connected it and disconnected them. And then one day they came to pull the meter out, and I asked, well, what are you taking the meter out for? You know, it's already disconnected. And they said, well, we're supposed to take the meter out. And the real reason is because if I want to go back to the municipality, they charge you a whole bunch of money and put the meter back in.
Yeah, or when you sell the house, they want to charge the next homeowner money to come out there and put in a meter. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
But, you know,
I'm sure they were pissed when you went off the water, because that's a lot of money. Like your water bill is not high, listener, but when you add it up 12 months times 20 years, it's a lot of city money that they just lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the quality is no good either. I mean, a couple of years ago, the municipality told everybody, do not drink the water or boil the heck out of it, because they had a water main break and there was a lot of contaminants getting into the water. A lot of restaurants had to shut down in Chapel Hill and the surrounding area.
When was this?
Oh, this was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, I didn't hear about this at all.
But
I guess living in Durham,
I'm laughing because I got my own water that's purified.
Yeah,
you know, out of.
But you were beginning to say, before I was fascinated by the disconnection, that your well water was not good, though. You had to.
No, it was not.
Yeah, you had to put in a system.
I had to. I got a couple of big tanks in there with automatic backwash valves, and what I do, I raise the pH from like 6.5 to 7.2. I use it's like there's a couple different products you can use. Calcite's one of them. Another product is called Flow Max, and there's another one that's more industrial. But if you got really acidic water, it'll really raise the pH way up. And they got buffers in it to keep the pH up. So that's important. So because I have copper pipes, and with acidic water, people might see green stains in their shower and things like that. If you see green staining, it's usually because you have copper pipes and the water's acidic, and the acid water or acidic water is dissolving the copper. And copper is a heavy metal, so you do not want to drink it or consume it. So, you know, be cautious of that if you see that. And so I took care of that problem. And about every 2 years, I have to add media to that tank.
Okay.
All right. Then I have another tank that has a media in it called Phylux and granule activated carbon. So the Phylux removes all the iron and manganese from the water. The granule activated carbon will remove pesticides, herbicides, carcinogens from the water. And then I have a sediment filter that goes down to 5 microns. So if anything gets through those tanks, sediment-wise, it'll capture. And the smallest thing you could see with the naked eye is about 40 microns, like the pin, the head of a pin.
Oh, wow. We're
about
talking
40
real
microns. So the smaller the micron, the more it's taken out. So 5 microns, you can't even see, but it's taking it out.
Okay.
And then after that, I also have a hard water issue that we talked about earlier. So instead of a water softener that's adding salt, I just have a cartridge system. And you have one on your house too, I believe.
Yeah, which we're going to check after this podcast.
We're going to check this. But what it does, it changes or it balances the calcium that's in the water, and without using salt. So the calcium doesn't stick or adhere or build up in your hot water heater and things like that.
Yeah.
It just flushes it through. And if you're for young children or aging adults, it's important that we have some calcium. So it's nothing harmful. or it just flushes through. It doesn't stick. But I do warn people that if you would take a pot of water with that system and boil it, and all the water's dissipated out, you'll have a white film on the bottom.
Yeah,
but
you were mentioning that.
Yeah, but the difference is you could take a cloth and wipe it right off. It's not sticking to the pan.
Okay. Other
because
other
it's
stuff
balanced.
is like
It's just sitting there because it's not going to evaporate.
right. That unbalanced that it like crystallizes. You said it becomes like concrete.
Right.
And you don't want that in your stuff or your bones or in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the balance part is the key. Not so much calcium, but the fact that it is balanced.
And the unbalanced calcium that comes from hard water, if you consume that, it gives people things like kidney stones and issues like that as well. So, it's another reason for, on the health side, to consume good clean water. We're made up of over 70% of water, you know. And, we can go 3 days with food, but we can't go 3 days without water.
Yeah.
So it's
even
one of our most important resources.
I think it's longer than 3 days now without food. I think they said if you can really push survival like weeks without food, not water. I was like, but water, it's like you got like maybe 2-3 days, I think, or something.
But I was just comparing that. 3 days without water, you're in dire straits. 3 days without food, you're okay.
Yeah.
You can live off the fat of the land.
So what are I guess the problem with so many of these things in the water is they are odorless and colorless and tasteless, and like, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback when you have a child with a birth defect. But how to avoid a child with a birth defect, obviously, like what is the first initial thing? Like, okay, short of just go buying a water testing kit or calling somebody like you, what's the first thing a homeowner should be looking at that they've been ignoring and realize that's a water thing? It's a water filtration issue.
Well, it could be several things. Let's say you have children and you give them a bath and they're developing rashes, skin issues, things like that. I mean, that's an obvious sign,
because most people go right to their laundry detergent. They blame their laundry detergent.
Yeah.
Go, I need something scentless, and I need something whatever, and that could not be the issue. It could just be your water.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that assumption, but a lot of people discard looking at the water.
Right. Well,
first.
It's easier to just change detergents. Like you run out of detergent, you go to Target, just get a different one. Changing the water is, like you said, people put it off. It's a harder thing to deal with. It's a more expensive thing to deal with.
Right. Well, when I was a young kid growing up in New York, New York City's water was like the best in the country. You just go get a glass of water out of the tap, all right? And still it had chlorine and other issues in it, but, it still seemed pretty good. And that's the mentality that we grew up with. But like I mentioned earlier, over the decades and with the passing of that Clean Water Drinking Act of 1985, it's like somebody dropped the ball. So too many things can happen.
I grew up drinking hose water and swimming in the Hudson River.
Well, by the time, look what happened in Michigan, okay, with lead in the water.
Yeah.
You know how long it took them to notify the end users, the people in the homes? They didn't come out right away and say, hey, don't drink the water, there's lead in it, all right? So people got exposed to that. Several years ago in Pittsburgh, right here in North Carolina, they had E. coli in the water. And they didn't tell anybody for 3 weeks. And then they started notifying people, boil the water, don't consume the water.
There's no government regulations of informing. Nothing applies. They can just keep that under wraps.
Like I said, people are dropping the ball because of that Clean Drinking Water Act.
It doesn't seem like a ball dropped. It seems like they purposely put that ball in a closet.
It's like they're passing the buck to the lowest denominator, so to take care of things. And so we're under the assumption that, hey, a water safe comes out of the tap, and in a lot of cases it is, okay? But they've got to do something to control bacteria in the infrastructure. Infrastructure is getting very old in this country. You got a lot of buildup in that infrastructure that's leaching back into the water. So who knows what's coming out of your tap right now unless you actually have it tested. And, if you want a complete analysis, just look for an independent lab might cost several $100s to have a complete analysis, but then you know exactly what you're dealing with.
And do you provide that service? Can you do a complete testing?
I'd recommend places to send it to. We do come out and test for certain things like iron, manganese, hardness, pH, and things like that. And we do that free of charge, no obligation, and give a free estimate. But, it's really up to the consumer to do some of their homework too and educate themselves,
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing this podcast, literally, is because so many people don't know or might even just know and just don't think about it or don't realize that it really should be a higher priority. I mean, like in my mind, like getting good sleep, like getting good nutrition, like taking vitamins, you should be drinking good water. And I mean, if you're going to put literal poison in your body, but it's just small enough that it's only going to affect you in 60 years, I'd rather just not put the poison in the first place.
Exactly.
It seems like it obviously seems like a duh, but everything, takes time and money. And
well, it's always been my opinion that, water purification or treatment systems or filtration systems for the home should be a standard appliance.
Yeah.
Just like years ago when microwaves came out, nobody wanted a microwave. Now you can't buy a home without a microwave.
Yeah, it's very rare.
It's a standard appliance. And water purification should be the same way, but I don't know why it keeps getting pushed out.
Yeah.
And
it's just like the RV situation. You were like, now that company, it's a standard thing.
Yeah, now everyone has them.
Yeah.
We sell to Hatteras yachts and Christensen motor yachts, like big 150-foot yachts. And, they travel around the world. They get different water sources. And even though they have equipment to make fresh water on board from the ocean, they still it still goes through our purification system. So they got good, clean water no matter where they go.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I am so far removed from the yachting community, but I'm realizing like, well, they drink too. And yeah, you go to, you take your yacht to a third world country. You don't want to drink the water, or now you can, because you can dump it in your rolling filter.
We also have travel filters too for people who travel or camping. We have little sport bottles with filters in them and things like that.
So you're literally full service from billionaire yacht to the low end or the handheld.
And we've always recommended the most cost effective, low maintenance system for your needs, instead of like a lot of companies are just resellers of somebody else's product, and they got a limited selection. So no matter what the issue is, you need a water softener. Right. And they're going to shove that down your throat.
Oh my God. That is, if you go to like Home Depot and there's that like dude at the table with the like, oh, do you want a free test? Like, take this home, test your water, bring it back. I swear you could give them soda. Yeah. You could give them anything. And the answer is, well, you need a softener.
Yeah.
Like and buy the salt from Home Depot.
And there's some companies that spend a lot of money on advertising and promoting themselves, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but who's going to pay for that? The consumer,
right? The customer's got to pay for
that. I hear from some clients that ended up going with this other company. I won't name them.
Yeah, we're only doing positive shout outs.
That's right.
On this podcast.
But they're well-known companies. Been around a long time and advertise like crazy. And for a system that we would have done for maybe about $3,000, they paid $12,000. Not only that, they financed it for 18% interest, and by the time they're done with it, they're paying $16,000-$18,000.
Identical system,
comparable.
Wow.
Right? And they got maintenance. Or it's a water softener. So they got a lot of maintenance, and they're going to have a lot of issues with their appliances and everything else down the line. So don't be fooled. Get comparisons, get several quotes if you're interested. Just don't jump on the first thing that comes your way, I guess. But, just be cautious at things like that. I mean, it's true in every industry.
So how much advertising do you spend?
We spend some, but it's very targeted.
That's what I paid for. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what you paid.
Yeah, my filter doesn't work, everybody. It's a scam. No, I'm just kidding.
But we do a lot of email marketing and things like that. And we don't do a lot of it because, you know, like I said earlier, I'm a consumer too. And I hate getting advertising, you know, a lot of junk emails or things coming in. So, I mean, we target a specific market once in a while. Our best advertising is word of mouth.
Yeah, that's my entire advertising.
Yeah, we have so many satisfied customers, and like I said, we're on a lot of RVs and yachts, and those people own homes too, and they love the quality of the water they have on the RV, so they get one for their home. And you know, we're a national company, international company. We ship outside the United States, and you know, we've been in, like I said, been in business for over 30 years, and I'd like to see this become a standard appliance. You know, you're a builder, and
it really should be a standard appliance, and it makes more sense. I mean, when you think about even how we did ours, you know, you sold me a product, I was very happy with it, but even then it was like, you know, there was confusion. You were like, yeah, I'm going to come by and install it. But then like you kind of needed Tommy's help. And then I had to like give him a couple $100, and I thought it was like included. And like, obviously had it been in when we built the house, then the plumbing would have been run to it, and it would have just been plumbed nicer. And like, not that it's plumbed ugly or anything. Like we screwed it all to that 2x6 and it's all clean and everything, but it just should be, especially if you're on the city, you know, right from the tap, right from the ground, the first entry to the home, it should just go through a filtration system before it goes through anything else in your house.
Right. It's a point of use system. So at the entry of the house where the water comes in, purify it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have nothing to worry about.
And you save your house so many repair. I feel like we already talked about this, but I can't beat this horse dead enough. Like, everything's going to break. There's no such thing as nothing
lasts forever.
Yeah. My pop's handyman, Rusty, in New York, says everything works till it doesn't. And I was like, well, you can't even argue such logic that makes no sense and doesn't make sense at the same time. But it's the same thing for your house, your townhome, your apartment. It doesn't matter. If you own it, you got to fix it. So it's just like everything will last longer, down to the fitting you can't see that makes the 90-degree turn inside the wall, that when it springs the tiniest leak, you won't notice until 20 years of tiny little leak built up 19 years of mold, and now you're pulling out multiple walls.
Which I got to add, insurance companies will now cover if it's a slow leak like that. You know, it has to be a burst pipe before they even cover it. I've had that issue before with the insurance companies. But we work with some big builders, especially out in California, to try and bring whole house purifiers or any kind of filtration.
How is that going?
Very slow. They're not adding it to every home they build. But a lot of times when they're building a home, clients will come in for upgrades, you know, upgrade the floor, the countertops, whatever, and then they'll offer them a whole house purifier if they want to upgrade to that. All right.
Yeah.
But they're really not pushing it. You know, I think they should just up the price by $1,000 or $2,000 and put it in. You know?
Yeah.
And then it's in there. And again, like the comparison I gave about the RV industry, how I got in there, I think the home builder, especially if it's a big national corporation, it was like, hey, here's the price of our house. Here's the price of their house. You know, everything's about the same. You know, maybe a couple dollars difference here and there. But this one has a whole house purification system. You got good clean water. The only maintenance you need is about every 2 years replace a sediment filter or something like that. You know, very low maintenance. I'd go with that house.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like though, you know, on that note, like those big box builders, I feel like everybody's always getting screwed on what is, and I'm using air quotes and there's no video, included. You know, you like, oh, this is the price to build your house. It's $375,000. And then you get to like the last month of construction and they're like, okay, so what's your budget for countertops? And you're like, excuse me? Like the house is $375,000 and that doesn't come with countertops. It doesn't come with like light fixtures or so, you know, it doesn't come with doorknobs. Like, you now have to pay $6 a doorknob. It's like, wait a minute, guy. Like, would you sell me a car with no tires? Like, it doesn't make.
They might.
No, no. Obviously, they might, and I'm sure that somebody's got a hilarious story that predates me. But that is, I feel like that that is already an issue in the big box home buyer thing, and then and could become even more of an issue when you see the bait and switch advertising of big box chain building you a house A and big box chain building you a house B, and they both say they'll build you a house for $375, but this one comes with a whole house water filter, and then you get to the last month, and yeah, it does, but it's $2,500 extra dollars,
right.
And it's like, well, wait a minute, the bait and switch is real, and you're locked into a contract, and you've paid half of the house build already, and I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant, but I worry about that kind of thing.
Just like any industry, everything's price driven, cost driven, so, and being competitive. So I think that's why they let it be an aftermarket thing, kind of like the RV had that idea. But when they realized, no, people want this.
Yeah.
People are desiring this. And look, their sales went up, way up. They're stealing our market share. They want to get on board. But nobody's willing to take that leap. And for decades now.
Well, it's a risk. So that's why nobody's willing to take that risk. But the first big, and I don't even know a name to shout out, but the first big box builder house company that just goes, you know what? We're testing the water before we start ground on a 600 house development. And, oh, you know what? This water sucks. So the houses are $3,000 more expensive, and they all come with perfect water filters from AguaCity. And like, it will just be one of those situations where like it just happens one time like that. And that story will spread, or those people who live there will be like, man, my laundry does feel cleaner. And all of a sudden, like that word of mouth. And then all of a sudden another big box chain home builder will be like, hey, why aren't we putting in water filters? And like, that's how it will happen. But it's like you said, you need somebody to take that risk, take that leap. Yeah,
I know. So it'll happen over time.
Yeah,
I imagine. But and if they do it from the beginning when they're building the house and put in the whole house purifier installed in the garage, let's say, near where the hot water heater might be, or in the crawl space or whatever they got, the cost of doing that would be a lot less than the homeowner buying the home and then having to do it afterwards, because now they got to hire another plumber.
Yep.
And the equipment and
extra lines of PEX.
Not only that,
fittings.
but it could add to their bottom line because they'd make a little bit on that as well. And I think if somebody would take that risk, I've talked to companies like Shea Homes, for example. They're so cookie cutter. Let's do everything the cheap way out, that they're not even interested. And I'm like, they don't even want to put a filter in the shower or under the sink or something. Very inexpensive, but it probably costs them under $100 to do that. But they still don't want to do that.
Well, it's interesting. It's similar. I use the analogy of like the car industry with like, you used to get a car from the dealer, and like the first thing you would do is go put better rims, better tires, put a new sound system in it, potentially paint it, and now look at they were like, wait a minute, we're losing on an entire section of, we could just call it another trim package with better speak. Like, we can do that. And now like, obviously, there are, celebrities who will get a whole custom whatever, but it used to be a lot normal, and now it's not as normal. Like, you buy a nice car, or not even a nice car, and it's got a great sound system. You're like, I don't have to upgrade this. So it's gonna move one day, and I think we said it 4 times now. Somebody's got to, but somebody will take that leap when they realize it'll just provide a better product.
Well, look, if there's any home builders out there listening to this podcast, give us a call and let's talk about those options.
AguaCity.com. Call Bob immediately because he'll give you a wholesale hookup.
That's right.
Brought to you by the Orange Hammer Podcast. We can make this happen. Let's expand the network. Well, yeah, I'm with you though. I mean, I put it on my house. I very much enjoy it.
Well, you're a satisfied customer, so
Yeah, but I'm also a builder, and I
Right.
can see like, yeah, if I admittedly, I'm doing a project right now. It's a rental project, and even though I will have to maintain it for 10 years, I'm not going to put a filter system on it because the stuff shouldn't break in 10 years. Durham's water is not that bad. You could argue against whatever, but like it's not in the budget. But it would be easier now that the walls are open and there's no sheetrock and insulation and he hasn't plumbed it yet for me to be like, hey, you're putting the water heater right there? Cool. Put a filter run a tube right there and boom, done. Like it would be very, very easy right now. And I will say, like, well, I guess we should talk about that a little bit. Like it's not nothing, but it is not a terribly complicated installation when you own a home and you've worked out a deal with you and now it's time to go. So I think, and I don't want to, do any negative or accuse you of anything at all, but I think because it was like a friend conversation and I was a general contractor, things just like maybe slipped through the cracks and we got Tommy out here in a pinch and, for like $200 or $300, it was done and no big deal. But I would assume that for, a John or Jane Doe who is not a general contractor, you probably more elaborately go over you bought a filter from me. Now, how do you want to install it?
Well, we'd come out, take a look at the situation, and suggest where to install it. Because
I mean more in terms of like who's gonna physically do the installation.
Oh, well, we recommend it. Well, if it's a whole house system, by law, it's got to be a licensed plumber, or the homeowner can do it, or they can hire their own handyman. All right, we're not a licensed contractor to do that kind of work, so
Gotcha.
we usually sub that out or recommend a licensed plumber to do the work, and usually the homeowners just pay them directly.
Yeah.
All right. So depending on the situation, would be a couple $100 to $600-700, depending on how long the runs are, or what they have to do, or material costs have all gone up.
Yeah.
In the last year or so.
This was at the height of material cost, and I think I had to give. I honestly can't remember the numbers, but my memory is telling me that the system was about $1,500 and that I had to give Tommy something like $300 or $400. Oh, and then maybe he gave you $100 to help him or something like that. I can't remember, but I mean, in an hour and a half, the three of us were out of my crawl space with a scrap pressure treated 2x6 that I had. You were like, you got some lumber we could screw this to? I was like, yeah, I got screws. Here's a drill. I was like, I happen to be the client that has, drill screws and stacks of lumber lying around. So, I'm not an everyday client, but it was very like, of course I do. Like, yes, anything to get this done. And it was, it was no big deal. My crawl space is also tall enough for me at 6'5" to stand up in, so that's convenient to work in physically. Right. And a plumber is going to charge a little bit more because it's annoying to crawl in an 18-inch or 25-inch tall crawl space. And my plumbing was all neat and exposed. So, I mean, as far as installs go, it could have been in the top 5 easiest. It was well lit, no crawling, literally in the crawl space. Right. Everything right there.
It didn't take any time at all to hook it up.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things we recommend to put in, like 3 shutoff valves. So
for sure.
In case there's ever an issue, you can bypass the whole system.
Yeah.
Let's say something freezes and breaks or something.
Yeah.
You got water spraying, you can bypass the whole system.
And for those who don't know what that vernacular means, so shutoff valve, pretty clear, but basically it's a big red valve that will just completely stop, and I mean full on water pressure, irrelevant. It will stop the water. And so in the water system, there's extra pipes and extra valves that when everything is working, they are completely useless and you think they cost more money, but it's all about when something goes wrong. Enjoy the best, prepare for the worst. Right. So when the middle section of your filter breaks, cracks, whatever, leaks, you just bypass it. The water continues to go around it, so you still get water to your home, and it allows your plumber or Bob or your handyman or whoever to come in and do the necessary repair on that section. So rather than just shutting off where the water comes in and your whole house is now dry, you can still like function and live. You know, what if it took a month to get that part? So those, you know, I don't know what they are, $20 a valve or whatever. They're not a lot of money in the scheme of, well, do you want to potentially go without your creature comforts for weeks at a time? Or would you like to just not have filtered water for a week while we wait for the filter? Right. So when you look at it that way, it's a non-event.
Yeah, and that's why we do it. Just for the worst case scenario, you know, you could bypass everything and still have water.
Yeah.
Until whatever needs to get replaced or repaired or whatever.
I have my plumber put in an extra redundant shutoff valve in all the houses we do because they're rentals. And so my tenants are not expected to know what to do when something goes wrong. But on day one, I'm like, look, anything water related, you sat on the sink, you guys were having sex, whatever, you know, it's your house when you rented from me and you broke something, there's a valve. Turn it off. At least you saved the floor. Yeah. And call me, and then we'll figure it out. But like, if you didn't know that, and they were like, "There's been water gushing for 11 hours," bro, that's like very different. Yeah, thanks. Like that is a drastically different situation. So that I've always like telling my plumber, I'm like, okay, let's find a good spot. Maybe under that sink, or you know, yeah, whole house, kill it, the whole thing.
Now the joy of being a landlord.
Hey, you know, it took one house to learn like 8 crucial things about specifically building houses for, you know, we're a niche thing where we build a house for renters to be sold in years to come.
Right.
So we have to think about what will sell, but the durability. So like, you know, a renter. Nobody's building a renting unit and putting in granite, but we are, because it'll hold up against a tenant who puts a hot pot on it. It won't leave a ring like the Formica, and it'll last the 10 years. And maybe it needs a buff, a seal, or a polish, but it'd be ready to be sold 10 years from now. Yeah. And like, that's, you know, we do like subtle things like that make
you're
the
doing
difference.
It smart, you know. Not all builders are that way.
Well, we're not builders. I mean, we are in the sense that we build things, but we are not. When you think of a stereotypical builder, a builder is like, how quickly can I build as many houses as possible and put out a good product? I'm not saying that they cut corners. There are bad builders who do, but that's a whole different conversation. But they're trying to make profit. And don't be confused. I have bills. I want to make money. I don't like live for free or whatever. But we're just in a very niche situation that we really enjoy. We're doing something unique, which is to us fun, important, and rare in this world and rare in this industry. So we're doing something that we enjoy, and we've been, I gotta say, probably the most fortunate to really only have like one bad tenant. We've had some really incredible tenants that, for the most part, are like, how can we stay with you? Because it works. You know, we have a very personal connection with our tenants. You don't put in an online request order with the machine and wait for a stranger. You have my cell. You text me when the dishwasher breaks. I'll fix it, or I'll show up with a new one.
Yeah, having a good tenant's rare, but you want to keep them. You know, I've been in that situation the last couple of years. I've been downsizing, you know, as I get older.
Yeah.
And initially, when I first moved here, on the side, I was buying up foreclosures, fixing them up, flipping them, and then the economy crashed there in, what was it, 08 or 09, and you know, you couldn't sell anything. Banks weren't lending money, so I became a landlord. You know, and that's a whole can of worms in itself, you know. But I'm glad you're taking that approach of taking care of and thinking ahead and taking care of the tenants, because if you got a good tenant, you want to keep them in there. You know, somebody pays on time, takes care, has respect for your property.
Exactly. And the way that I look at it too is like, I am building this with my bare hands, or my subs now, because you know, my leg problem, I'm doing less physical hammer swinging, but I'm building it, so I know it. And if I cut the corner, it was only my fault. And so if a tenant moves in and like a year later something breaks, I've got nobody to blame but myself. Obviously, defective fan from Home Depot, what are you going to do? Like, shit happens. But for the most part, like, if there's a big break it's because a corner was cut and I either cut it or I didn't stop whoever was cutting it from cutting it. So it's on me. And if I want to keep this house for 10 years and milk the rent from it, I need it to not freaking break. Like, that's just another expense. Exactly. It's my time. And it's like, so, you know, when I make my framer put in extra blocking and he's like, well, this isn't required by code. I'm like, I don't really care. I want extra blocking. Like, it's going to be better for the spray foam to have something to sit against. And it's going to be more beefy when the, you know, he didn't even think about it, but it's going to be more beefy when the gutter guy screws the gutter. He won't have to find the end of the joist. He'll have solid blocking all the way. Mm-hmm. And it's just like that one monsoon that would have taken the gutter down. Now it won't. Like, it's just things like that, you know, and, you know, these tiny little things. You know, it took me a career that I'm still very much in the middle of to learn these things, and I'm never done learning. Hell, I had to learn that part. I had to learn the part where I wasn't done learning because, of course, the younger you are, the more you think you know everything. And I just, like, you know, those tricks one by one of like, well, it's just going to break in 5 years. Let's do it flawlessly this time.
You know, I built a house from California when I was moving here, and I hired a reputable contractor out of Cary, Upright Builders, and I thought he was great, but I told him afterwards, I said, you know, I think you're a great builder, but you're only as good as your subs, and every one of your subs messed up something in this house, including I just found this out recently, they put the roof on with no paper underneath.
No tar paper.
No tar paper, just the roof on top of the plywood. I'm like, who does that? You know, and then even the fascia board and stuff, they used interior wood, which is like cardboard on the outside, didn't last, it rotted away, things like that. They didn't put the right width gutters on, you know, and I had a lot of issues like that. So, and not only that, I had a gas leak in the attic. They tied a gas line in the corner of the eave of the roof and the wall coming up, where I had to go on my belly and reach out to try to tighten that up. You know, to find that leak was crazy. You could smell it, you know. But those are things I didn't know by building a house and looking for. You know, I just trusted everybody. And sometimes you need to be on top of people who are doing things and ask all the right questions. And again, you don't know that unless you educate yourself.
Yeah.
Through whatever means, including your podcast. So
yeah, and I mean it's so well put. Yeah, it's like the fear that I have for somebody not in the industry being their own general contractor. Just like you could get told it's the right thing, and you could just get lied to. Let's boil it down. Like, it's just a lie. Like, oh yeah, we put the tar paper up, but you didn't. And I had to wait 20 years till the roof rotted to go replace the roof and realize there's a whole missing layer here. Like, you know, not that you would have gotten more time out of, but it's just not the right way to do it.
Well, it also amazes me that I had all these issues, and, you know, I thought the house was inspected. How did that pass inspection? You know? How'd you get past that? You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of things you don't know and you discover when you become a homeowner. And I've owned several homes over the years, so, you know, I've self-educated myself on a lot of things. But, you know, same thing with like water purification and filtration. You know, if you don't use our system, anything's better than nothing.
Right.
You know, a lot of people buy these pitchers that
have
the
Brita,
like a Brita, and there's other brands out there, and it's good water. Well, it's good if you're using municipality water with heavily chlorinated and no other issues. But when you have a gravity feed filter like those are, there's only so much you can take out of the water. All right. You need something that's under pressure and has longer contact time with the media to really purify the water. And what those pitchers are designed to do is to really remove the chlorine taste and smell, because chlorine is a product that you can smell and taste. You know, if your glass of water smells like a swimming pool, you don't want to drink it. You know?
So the Britas are really just doing chlorine.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And they don't take 100% out either, but they
so
do
this
remove.
Brita is, like you said, anything better than nothing, but Brita not really doing it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what they cost now. $35, let's say, for the pitcher and everything. And
I
then
had one 10 years ago in college. I couldn't even tell you.
And then the filters are, I don't know, let's say they're $15 each. They want you to replace it every month or two. We'll do the math. You know, that's very expensive for something that's not really purifying the water. It's a gravity feed system. Takes up a lot of room in your refrigerator, you know, and it's a big pitcher, but half of that's what the filtration system.
Totally.
So you only got about half a pitcher of water. And, you know, it's cheap.
I look back and I'm pretty sure I just cared about having cold water in the fridge. I don't think I actually cared about the filter.
No.
Like I was one of those people who was like, oh yeah, filtered water, sure. Or to be honest, it probably was a gift from like my mom or my girlfriend at the time. And I probably like never bought new filters and was just like, well, I have cold water in the fridge instead of like the lukewarm water of the tap. And that was the attraction. Yeah.
Many years ago after I started this business, I also saw a need for refrigerators. You know, they have ice makers, they have dispense water, and they're just hooked up to a 1/4-inch water line coming in off your sink or something.
Yeah. Now they all have filters.
So, yeah, they do. And I'm the guy that convinced them to do that. I went out to White Westinghouse, and I think they're in LaPorte, Indiana, and GE. And I convinced them to do this. And for a year, maybe a year and a half, they were using our filters. All right. But then they realized what a cash cow. Well, what a cash cow this could be for them. So they came up with their own design. They have it built in China, real cheap, and they suggest you replace it every 3 to 6 months at an average cost, I don't know, $50, $60 a filter. And, you know, because they had a patent on that, you know, we couldn't copy it for 7 years. But now we have replacements for $10, $15 cheaper than them. But we started that whole industry, and then they took control of it because, you know, it's a cash cow for them.
Yeah, if memory serves, the cash cow part is why I called you, because I'm pretty sure my new fridge obviously came with a brand new filter, and I put it in, and then a couple months went by, and it said, get a new filter, and I went to Home Depot, and I was like, how much are these?
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that's when I called you. I was like, I'm not buying these. They want me to replace these. I was like, it could have been $60 or $50 for a filter from Home Depot.
Right.
Or it may have been $120. They forced you to buy a 2-pack, whatever. But it was way too much money for me to just blindly buy it. And I'm pretty sure that's when I stopped buying those filters and went with the whole house system.
Yeah. And these filters that are in the refrigerators, they're like a bayonet style where you push it in and turn it and it locks it. But if you disconnect it, it's automatic bypass on the water line. So if you had a whole house filter or even a filter under the sink or one of our inline filters on the 1/4-inch line behind the refrigerator, that filter would last you over a year. But the whole house filter, you got good clean water coming in. So you could disconnect that filter and never have to buy that particular filter for your refrigerator.
Yeah, well, I mean, you filter the fridge. That doesn't filter the sink right next to the fridge. So to me, I was like, this doesn't make any sense to keep using the fridge filters. Unlike my time in college, now the water's too cold out of the fridge. I want it lukewarm out of the tap. Don't ask me why. I'm just weird. And probably because I can drink it faster. But so I was just like, well, I'm, you know, even now at $50 or whatever I just said, $120 for 2, I was like, and I'm not drinking it. I was like, this is for guests. So I tell guests now who come over and they're like, ooh, filtered water from the fridge. I'm like, by the way, there's no filter in there and it's just cold. And they're like, what do you mean? And then I have to explain, like, I moved away from the scam and I moved into the whole house situation.
And it's been what, maybe 2 years since we installed that system, I think.
It could have been even a little bit longer. And I think I am probably overdue for a new calcium replacement because I'm starting to see like some of those little red rings that I wasn't seeing. They're like coming back, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably due for a new filter. And I think I texted you a while ago, and you were like, yeah, you're definitely new for one. Go take a picture. And I was like, why don't you come do a podcast, and then we'll look at it. And here we are. But yeah.
So we'll look at that in a little while. But it's been, I think, over 2 years, and this will be the first maintenance you've done to it.
Yeah, 100%. And I have noticeable different feeling in my clothes. I have noticeable difference when I shower. I haven't had to replace a faucet, but when I do, I'll crack it open and see what the sentiment's like. But my guess is it would be better. In relative short time frame before you put in my filter, I switched from tank electric old school to tankless gas new school in the water heater department. And I have since had Jeremy actually come over with his little 1 in 1 out hose with a little pump and cleaning thing. And we did do a clean, but I mean, it's like such a new hot water heater that it should have been clean, and it was clean, and it looked like brand new. So I don't really have a frame of reference on that, but I can speak 100% to, the clothes and the shower and
I think those are the things a lot of people notice right off the bat.
And the taste, just like coming out of the tap, like nothing else changed, obviously. Like my sink faucet was the same, and it tasted weird at first. You warned me. It's like, it's going to be different, good, but different is actually you used to junk and now you're getting no junk. Right. It's like when you are used to fast food and you're like, let's start eating clean. And the first week you're like, this is weird. And then the next week you're like, this is just how I feel. I've just been feeling shitty for 25 years. This could just be the way I exist every day without knee pain inflammation or like bad bathroom time. Like, oh my God. And it just like, that's what kind of happened is I started just drinking water and I was like, this is
good.
This is just a lack of
It makes you want to drink more. I mean, good clean water really shouldn't have no taste of or odor, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it tastes good because it has no taste or odor. And, if you're used to drinking tap water or out of the garden hose or
Which
whatever.
I am, yeah.
Then you do notice the difference that it smells good, it's clear. I think I also warned you after we put the system in that at first the water comes out cloudy.
Yes.
And it'll dissipate from the bottom up. And that's only because there's a lot of air in the system. And it takes about a week to work that out, but there's nothing wrong with the water.
Yeah. As a guy who likes seltzer, I was like, that's kind of what I'm used to.
Yeah, it would bubble like Alka-Seltzer on top, Yeah. But you can see the water dissipate from the bottom up in the glass. And you can watch that physically happen. So it's just air bubbles clouding the water, and that's very typical. But you will not have the rings, you will not have the stains. A lot of people with iron and manganese in water, they're always complaining their white clothes have got a reddish brownish tint to it now, and things like that. So you really got to, as a consumer, you really got to think on how can I save money and have great water at the same time, Because it's going to save you a lot of aggravation, time, and money on replacing appliances, faucets, hot water heaters, especially if you had tankless. And that's a lot more expensive. And just saving one of those instances pretty much paid for the whole house system.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, and maybe we'll end on this. You do the math as a homeowner to do, if you have a 5-bed, 4-bath house, okay, and everything's original and the water's crap and it's eating away your faucets, and in this hypothetical world, you're using your faucets all the same amount, and all 4 bathroom faucets break because of the water, okay. If you have that kind of house, let's be real, you're not replacing them with the $19 faucet at Home Depot, which doesn't exist anymore. Now it's $29. So you're probably buying a $100 faucet, or more. Or more. Let's just say it's $100 times 4. That's $400. Okay. Now the plumber has to come out, and I'm going to make up a number, which might be more. It's $150 a faucet for him to replace it. Okay, right there. I mean, 6 and 4, that's $1,000. So if you come in and put in a whole house system like you did for me for $1,500, those are not, $1,000 and $1,500 are not the same amount of money. But you can get by my example that it does not take a lot of things that didn't break due to the water system for it to make financial sense.
Now let me just clarify one more thing: not all whole house systems are $1,500.
No, obviously,
it really depends.
Mine was specific.
We'll test it. We'll make the most, like I said earlier, most cost effective, low maintenance system. And give you some other options if you need that. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways of dealing with that, and there's a lot of ways we could fit your budget if you're on a limited budget or something. But there's no excuse for not having good, clean drinking water.
Yeah.
Period.
It's your health. You get one chance of using this body for health, and you need water. So I feel like it's a no-brainer.
Right.
But
nobody lives forever, but we want to live as long as and a healthy, happy life.
Yeah. And it starts with food and water, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And some sleep. Yeah. Everybody get sleep. We leave you with this. Get sleep, take vitamins, and drink clean water that can be filtered by none other than Bob Potts at AguaCity.com. So
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. AguaCity.com. Get your water checked. And
can I give my toll-free number?
Yeah, go ahead. Throw it out there.
1-800-962-5516.
There you go. Call Bob Potts at AguaCity. All right, bye, everybody.